Welcome, and thank you for joining me to help understand your students' TrackEd report towards attaining their Queensland Certificate of Education, or QCE. During this tutorial, I'm going to show both a Year 11 and Year 12 TrackEd report so that it is clear and easy to understand in relation to how a student is tracking depending on where they are at in their Queensland Certificate of Education journey. Currently on screen, you will see a Year 11 sample. Just as a quick reminder, to be eligible for your Queensland Certificate of Education, you must accumulate 20 QCE points plus literacy and numeracy. You'll currently see the Year 11 sample on screen. At this point in time, the Year 11 student has only received a Term 1 report, and so they are very early in their QCE tracking information. In the top section, you will see their reporting data from that Term 1 report. So you can see as a student moves through their journey, each reporting data for each term will accumulate in these sections here. Based on how a student is going in their reporting information will then directly correlate to how a student is tracking at that point in time in relation to whether they are likely to receive a satisfactory or an unsatisfactory result towards their attainment of a QCE point for each unit. So you will see at the moment in this student example that there are 2 Ds received on their Term 1 interim report card. TrackEd has then identified that currently, in relation to Unit 1, this student is at risk of receiving an unsatisfactory for those 2 subjects in relation to QCE points. For Unit 1, there are 2 assessment pieces that sit within Unit 1. So this student still does have time to turn those identified at-risk unsatisfactories into a satisfactory, depending on how they go in the second piece of assessment. So the 2 pieces of assessment come together to give an unsatisfactory or satisfactory result overall. A way that you can tell at the moment that this is just tracking data, particularly for QCE points, is you will see that there is a yellow box in this middle section around the unsatisfactories and the satisfactory. So at the moment, they're just sitting as an interim result just to identify those possible at-risk scenarios. You will also see that that has a direct impact on the QCE points that a student is tracking for at this point in time. If that trend continues, the program automatically defaults to say that if those unsatisfactories continues for all of those units, then a student will in fact receive 0 QCE points for that subject. You can see for English Essential, for example, that the B in the report card has identified that the student is at this point in time tracking for a satisfactory. So if that trend continues, they will bank those 4 QCE points for Essential English. Just a quick reminder that when it comes to accumulation of QCE points, students will bank 1 point for satisfactory completion of Unit 1, another point for satisfactory completion for Unit 2, and then you will see that Unit 3 and 4 sit as a pair. So in a moment, when we look at a Year 12 tracking, you will see to get those final 2 points in each subject, they must receive a satisfactory for the Unit 3-4 pair. So currently, with this very early indication for this Year 11 student, due to these 2 unsatisfactories tracking information, you can see that this student at the moment has been identified as only on track to receive 12 QCE points. Hence the pink or red number there, which is indicating that they are currently below the 20 required points. You will also see that numeracy is highlighted in red as well, due to the unsatisfactory tracking information in relation to Maths Essential. So to remember, for QCE, it's 20 points plus that literacy and numeracy. Students traditionally accumulate those literacy and numeracy points by receiving a satisfactory result in a unit. So if you have a Unit 1 satisfactory for English and Mathematics, you will then meet your literacy and numeracy requirement. That goes the same for Unit 2 or 3-4 pair. Okay, so if a student does actually then have an unsatisfactory for Maths Essential, but then gets a satisfactory in Unit 2, then that numeracy will turn green at that point in time. To have an understanding of how that accumulates, as I said, across the 2 years and all 4 units for QCE tracking. This is a Year 12 sample. So what you can see up in the top section there is obviously more complete reporting data with the 4 terms from Year 11 and the term 1 from Year 12 at this point in time. So you can see the direct now correlation between the estimated, so remember this is still just estimated, there is time to still bank more points, but based on fullest and latest information where the student is sitting currently with their QCE tracking. So you can see that 4 QCE points from English Essential, Maths Essential, they have banked the Unit 1 point with the satisfactory, banked the Unit 2 point for the satisfactory, but for the first piece of assessment in Year 12, which factors into this Unit 3-4 pair, the student has received a D, which means if this trend continues, then the student will not receive those final 2 points for Unit 3-4 pair, which is why there is a yellow estimated only 2 points that have been overridden there. However, if the student turns this D around for a pass in the final 3 pieces of assessment in Year 12, which then means that there is a satisfactory overall, then that student can still gain back 4 points in this section. Down the bottom here, what you will also see is another variable for this student. So this student has also undertaken a VET certificate course, so a Certificate 3 in Business, which allows them to actually receive 8 QCE points from that satisfactory completion of the Cert 3 in Business. So whilst looking at this section up here, the student is only getting on track to receive 16 points, which would be under the 20, due to the 8 QCE points from this Certificate 3 in Business. If you add those under the VET component, you will see that this student is in fact on track to still receive 24 points if this information remains the same. The other important part to see in this student's profile is that because of a satisfactory completion of Unit 1 and or Unit 2, they are also green and have met the literacy and numeracy requirements towards their QCE. So you can see from this TrackEd report, depending on where a student is in their QCE tracking journey, the accumulation of information based on fullest and latest as to whether they are on track and likely to receive their QCE. Hopefully this tutorial helps you understand the TrackEd report a little more clearly in relation to how to interpret and understand whether a student is on track to receive their QCE or not. Thank you so much for tuning in, and of course, happy to take any further questions that you may have in relation to TrackEd and QCE tracking at any time. Alison Hopes, Head of Department of Senior Schooling. Thank you for your time.